Welcome to Specify Talks. This is the construction industry podcast where we look into the skills, the stories, and hopefully a few secrets of the people behind our buildings. This is where construction meets conversation. So if you work in the construction industry or you're just curious about how things get built, this is the place to be. I'm Jonathan Payne, and this is my co-host,
Gerard Graham.
Okay, well, Gerard, do you want to welcome this morning's guest?
Yes, delighted to. Today's guest is Suzanne Hill. So I've known Suzanne. Suzanne, when did you and I first meet? Was it around 2002, 2003 maybe?
Yeah, it's a long time ago, I think, yeah.
Yep, so let's call that 20 plus years. And Jonathan, you've never actually met Suzanne?
No,
I didn't realise you hadn't met her.
We've had a few discussions on Teams, etc., but never actually face to face, so
Good to put a face
nice to meet you. Nice to meet you,
you
Suzanne.
too.
Okay. So, Suzanne's a really interesting background. It's good to get you on, incidentally.
Thank you.
In a word, Suzanne, you're effectively recognised as an AI expert now. For a comment?
Well, as much as anybody can be an expert in it, yes.
Yeah. So, what we'd love to do here today is just get a little bit about your background and take 10 minutes because you have an interesting background. And then from there, we'll take it forward and look at what you're doing now in terms of AI, because AI is a huge topic, it's affecting everybody, and I, for one, like to find out more about it in layman's terms. Okay? So talk us through your own background. You're from Ballyclare originally?
Yes, I am, yes. And I suppose my career started out actually in something quite different from construction. It started out in export sales. So my background is actually I did languages at university, and I joined a graduate program with Randox,
Yes.
an export graduate program. And
So what was your role at Brett Martin? You started with Brett Martin then, didn't you?
yes, I did. That was back in 1998. So that was really my first introduction into the construction industry, and my role there was in export sales and marketing. So I looked after all the sales for the company throughout the whole American continent, so right from Canada right down to Chile.
Right, that's North America and South America.
Yes.
You're effectively area sales manager.
Yes, yeah.
Quick question I want to ask you. How many languages do you speak?
Well, I speak 5 fluently and then smatterings of others.
Right.
So
5? So what are the 5 languages?
so there are French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese and English, of course.
French, and how do you end up being fluent in Italian? How does that happen?
So I actually did my postgrad in languages and business. So I picked up Italian at that stage. I had a degree in French and Spanish and business, and then went on and did Italian.
Right.
And then I picked up Portuguese when I was working for Brett Martin, because I spent a lot of time on the ground in North and South America, and I was travelling to Brazil maybe 6 times a year.
Right.
And of course dealing with our Brazilian customers day to day on the phone. And I could understand what people said in Portuguese, but I couldn't reply back. So the company actually paid for someone to come in and teach me Portuguese. So it took me about 8 weeks to pick it up.
Right.
But I think when you have the languages, I know that English is the language of business, but I always say it depends on whether you're buying or selling.
Right.
You know, if you're selling, you want to give yourself as level a playing field as possible. And, you know, being able to speak the language and being able to communicate with people in their language puts them at ease. And of course you find out a lot more information, and you have a better understanding of the market, of nuance, and how to market yourself and how to position the company.
Right. And you picked up a language in 8 weeks?
Yes.
Portuguese?
Yes.
Through one-to-one tuition kind of?
Yes,
Couple
yeah.
of times a week?
Yeah, but it's different when you're using it every day in work, you know, and the guys that I worked with, they found this really hilarious, and, you know, they would teach me words, obviously, with a really Brazilian accent. And I remember bumping into some people from Portugal, and I started to chat to them in Portuguese. And they found this hilarious because they said that I had a really strong Sao Paulo accent.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, when you're using it every day, it makes a big difference. You know, it's not something that's static that you're learning at school in a textbook and you never have the opportunity to actually use it. I was using it every day. So.
Right. Wow.
there's a wee challenge over the Christmas, Jared, to learn a new language.
Yeah,
Right,
no bother.
okay.
Add to your
Just get on the Duolingo app. And
Many do you speak?
I speak a bit of Dutch.
Do you?
Yeah, speak Dutch.
Double Dutch or
I
double
did Dutch language classes when I lived in Holland. So there you go. So many do you speak?
I speak two. I speak English and construction.
Very good.
the most important.
It's a whole different
thing-
language, isn't it?
You didn't expect me to speak Dutch there.
I speak a little bit of French, but not.
Is it GCSE stuff?
We can order a beer
Right.
on a steak, so that's the main ones, you know.
The essentials.
And a good bottle of wine.
Do you still speak Portuguese today? If you met somebody on the street?
Yes, yeah, it's a wee bit rusty, I would say, but yeah, I mean, I certainly, I could have certainly a conversation with them.
Conversation. Wow. So you're from Ballyclare and you live in Hollywood now? Am I
Yes,
right?
yeah,
You're
yeah.
in Hollywood at the moment. Okay. So you went from Brett Martin. You then had a business, Handle Export, which very much overlapped with construction firms as well. How long did you run that for?
So I think that must be about, well, certainly 15, maybe 18 years. And how that came about was that I'd actually been out on an Invest NI trade mission. It was to Brazil and Argentina. And I got talking to some of the other companies that were on it, and I realised that they knew very, very little about doing business in those markets. And the whole time we were away, everybody was asking me questions about, how to do business there and different aspects of it. And I kind of thought, why am I doing this for someone else when I could be doing this for myself? So this was back in 2002, and it was just 2 years before the 10 new countries came into the EU in 2004. And back when I had been working for Randox, my sales, part of my sales territory was Central and Eastern Europe, so I already knew a lot about those countries that were coming into the EU, and I thought, actually, this is a really good opportunity to kind of bridge the gap there. Because those markets are going to be part of the EU, they're going to be natural export markets for a lot of our companies. So, so I decided to set up on my own back in 2002, and
that's construction industry companies among the portfolio of clients you were working with.
Yes, yeah, it was a mix of companies, but as time went on, I started to specialise more and more in construction because it's the industry, I suppose, that I knew best through my time at Brett Martin. I was working in Brett Martin for 4 years, and I suppose it gave me a huge exposure to different types of companies, because every market that we were doing business in, it was different types of customers, right from lumber yards in Canada to, DIY stores in the States to, I worked with the largest company on the Mexican Stock Exchange, which was one of the big steel companies. And I remember visiting their premises one day and, having a tour of the premises, and we had to do it in a golf cart, and it took half a day. So, I mean, it was an absolutely huge company. It's since been bought over by Tata Steel, but they did all the steel roofing and we were supplying in the roof lights. So, during that time, it gave me exposure to a lot of different companies. I was working with architects and specifiers for, roofs for shopping malls and sports stadiums, and, working with builders merchants. So suppose, when I had my own business then, it kind of was a natural flow that I was very familiar with the construction industry, and it was the one I enjoyed most.
So see again, just to touch on Brett Martin, just to confirm, what sort of products was it again that typically you would be selling into the Americas?
So it would have been all their polycarbonate and PVC roofing products, roof lights, and all that. It's all roofing.
Yeah, so you're out there yourself negotiating new sales, new distribution channels,
Yes.
getting the deals done.
Yes.
And were you also responsible for the physical export of these products as well, or was there people back office organising all that?
Yeah, there were people back office who did that. So my role was all the sales and marketing. And I suppose that, you think of Latin America and you think, everybody there speaks Spanish, so it's all the same. But it really isn't, because although they have a common language, every market that you go into there is completely different culture, different norms, how you market to people, how our products were positioned in each market was different. So, at one stage I was working with a company in Panama, There was a team of 52 people, and we ran a massive marketing campaign right across billboards, television, radio, the whole thing. So, so it was, I suppose, quite early on in my career. It gave me exposure to things that, you know, unless you're working in that environment, you're never going to get exposure to that. You know, to all the different scenarios.
Yeah, and that was all headquartered back in North Belfast.
Yeah, in Mollusk.
Yeah,
yeah,
all headquartered from there.
Yeah.
And then so your handle export work, the companies then from here were doing export into those new EU accession countries. And just remind us again, what sort of products and services were they exporting that you were helping facilitate?
Oh gosh, it was everything from, you know, it could have been services like recruitment companies or maybe software companies.
So a range of sectors there you were working with?
Yes, right to physical products and, you know, a lot of the construction contractors, architects, construction consultancy services as well.
Yeah.
So quite a broad range.
So they're selling their professional services to those countries?
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
And was there any of the contractors also trying to get into those countries at that stage?
Yes, there were, yeah. And I mean, there were some real success stories, companies like D-Lap and Waller, who set up an office in Warsaw. So, you know, I worked with the company to help them get that set up and, you know, get the ball rolling on getting them in front of their ideal customers.
Right. So Suzanne's worked with effectively hundreds of companies here?
Yeah, I think in the construction sector, it's probably in around about 300 companies, you know, not just in Northern Ireland, but nationally and internationally, because there were companies then in those markets that got to know me and knew the type of work that I did, and some of them were trying to break into the UK.
Yeah.
So, so it went in the other direction too.
Another question I've also wanted to ask you, now's my opportunity. What was your role with the Honorary Consulate of Slovenia? Have I pronounced that correctly?
Yes.
Is the first question.
Yeah, so I was appointed the consul for Slovenia. It was sort of in recognition of the work that I had done to promote trade links between Northern Ireland and Slovenia.
Right.
So so each country has an ambassador, and then in regional capitals they will have an honorary consul. So it's an unpaid role, and it's your role to promote trade links, and tourism links and business links between the two markets.
Right. Okay.
So,
and that's the term. Then you were honorary consulate. If I
honorary consul.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Were you aware of
No, I wasn't aware of that.
But it sounds more glamorous than it actually is, because one of the main things that you do is field crank calls from scammers trying to get passports for nefarious reasons. So,
and you're working, I imagine, very closely with like an ambassador for Slovenia. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, So I think I did that role up until a few years back, and but I think when you're self-employed, you have to be very careful about how you're using your time, and that role actually came to an end because you know.
It's too much commitment.
Yes, it is. You know, you have to be very laser focused on what you're doing, and at that stage, you know, I was kind of evolving the business into something else and involved in other things. So
you should have used AI to be more efficient.
Well, AI wasn't around at that time,
premature?
Jonathan, or else maybe my friend Chat and I could have managed.
You know, very good.
We're heading towards AI. Let me just ask you about one other thing. One of Belfast's biggest contractors is Gilbert-Ash, okay? Famous for the Waterfront Hall. Any other huge projects around?
Quite a lot. Like they have a good reputation now. They do a lot of the real prestigious museum projects,
yes, very
city
much
centre
so.
council projects, etc. That's really where they've established their market, isn't it?
It
and
is.
also they've done a lot of the embassies around the world as well, isn't that
That's
correct?
right, yes, yeah. I remember once being somewhere really random. I think I was actually doing a project for the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and I was in, I'm going to say Kosovo. It was either Kosovo or Albania, and there was a big crate sitting outside the British Embassy, and it had Gilbert-Ash's name on it, you know, and I remember taking a photograph and actually showing the guys then years later and saying, you know, you guys get around.
Yeah, wow. So see, about 10, 15 years ago, Gilbert-Ash, very much a well-recognised, established, strong contractor, okay? I remember being on their website, this has gone back 10 or 15 years ago, you know what, it was fairly average, okay? But you did work with them, and you helped position them for the London market. Well, I'm not going to ask you to break any confidentiality. What did you do there, Suzanne? Because that was they changed direction, and really their marketing improved. New website. I seen their physical marketing material. I seen an event that they did in London there, where they showcased all their projects. It was top end, but the marketing was dead sharp. Were you heavily involved in that?
Yeah, so I had sole responsibility for all of that.
So did you sit on their board?
So I was an advisor to the board.
Were you a non-executive director there, or just an advisor?
Just an advisor,
Fine,
yeah. So I actually went into Gilbert-Ash on a 20-day consultancy project and ended up staying for 2 days a week. I was working for them for 6.5 years.
Right.
So I think whenever I started working with the company, it was back in 2014, and at that stage a lot of their work was in Northern Ireland, like a lot of the contractors then, and it was just at the tail end of the financial recession, where I think a lot of companies were in the same position. They were really in a tailspin, their turnover had dropped, and they were kind of wondering what's next. So I went into the company at that stage and, did a bit of research on them and discovered that they were doing, like a lot of Northern Ireland companies, I think they're very modest about what they do. And I realised that, they had done a lot of really world-class projects, but they weren't telling anybody about them. So I started to reposition the company, and I said, look, you have to be known for something. There's a tendency, I think, in construction companies, and you say, what do you specialise in? And they'll say, oh, we're specialists in, and then they'll say about 8 sectors, and I'll say, well, you're not a specialist then, you're a generalist. You can only specialise in one sector, 2 maybe at most. And that was really what I wanted to do with Gilbert-Ash, was to kind of position them as a specialist in these landmark projects. So if you imagine, architects are working on the designs of those projects for years, and then at a certain point they have to hand them over to a construction company. Now, construction companies nowadays are very different from what they were back in 2014. But so I said, look, you've got to position yourself that you speak the language of the architects. You've got to look like an architect nearly. And so I put together this kind of tabletop book, and I don't know if you've seen that. It was called Landmark Landscapes.
Yes,
and
you did show it to me.
Yes.
And it looked really smart. It was physically thick.
Yeah.
It wasn't a flyer you're giving out.
No, it was a hardback book about this size, and with really top end photography. I commissioned Chris Heaney to do the photography for it.
But that's the top end photographer. I remember you saying that.
Yes.
And that cost money, but it was those fine details that you really, really pushed.
Yeah.
And that was the difference. Yes,
and I think, just being an expert in something like that, to an extent, there are, companies. There are lots of companies who can build office blocks and schools and hospitals and all of that. But if you can build some of those real flagship projects that are world class and they're winning world class awards, then that takes you to a whole other level. So I thought it was important for them to kind of put their flag in the sand and say, this is where our expertise lies, in the bespoke projects, in the high-end world-class ones. So all of a sudden, going into the London market and using that to open doors and to get in front of really high-end architects, the rest follows after that. If you can build those types of projects, you can build hotels, you can do everything else, So it was about differentiation and positioning.
So you got buy-in from the managing director on board there?
Yes.
To also kind of change the strategy slightly as well?
Yes, yeah. So I would have worked with them to write the 3-year strategy that took them from
being a general contractor?
Yes, and took them from around 60 million up to 140 million, and then a second 3-year strategy that took them from 140 up to 200 million. And to be fair to them, everybody in the company is very busy, so there's no micromanaging, and they put a lot of trust in me to to do all that repositioning piece, to market them, at that stage I don't think they even had any social media accounts. Yeah. So all those social media accounts were set up from scratch. Yeah. And, I think it's having a company that buys into your expertise and lets you run with it, rather than, as is the case in a lot of consultancy projects, where people bring you in and then they try to tell you how to do your job, So they gave me free rein. They bought into the ethos of what I was trying to achieve, and the big picture strategic stuff, and then they just let me get on with it. So it was really, as a consultant, they were the ideal client to work with.
Mm-hmm. When I think Gilbert-Ash, Jonathan, the word that comes to mind now is landmark.
Oh, very much
landmark
so,
buildings.
Yeah. As I always say, monuments.
Mm-hmm.
It's more the way to look at it, isn't
yes.
it?
If you look at all those projects they've done in, from the Giant's Causeway to the projects in London, and that's a clever bit of marketing.
Oh, very much so.
Going on
very
there.
much so positioned, yeah.
So it's landmark buildings and specialist fit out. Mm-hmm. So I remember you told me that a number of years ago. Your point was, be really careful about being a general whatever you are, because you're falling between too many stools.
Yeah,
so there's probably a lesson for everybody.
Oh, very much. Yeah, you got to focus on what you're good at, play to your strengths, don't you?
Yeah,
very definitely. Much. Yeah,
and they're still succeeding today.
Yeah,
very much so. Yeah. That takes us on to two other things. So a number of years ago, Suzanne, you changed tack, for want of a better way of putting it. And you quietly took yourself off to Dublin and did 2 diplomas at UCD. Okay. What was the title of both of them?
So the first one was AI for Business.
Yeah.
And the second one was Advanced AI for Business.
Right. So you've had a step change there. And you've looked at AI. The fact that you've went off to Dublin to do those 2 courses signifies to us that you looked at that and says, this is big stuff coming down the line, okay? And yeah, so to take it from there, was that full-time courses or part-time courses you did?
No, they were just part-time courses, but I think when you work in consultancy, really part of your role, and I suppose what I specialise in is strategy, change management, business improvement.
Yeah.
And so going back maybe even further than that, about 7 years ago, I started to read about AI, and I thought, gosh, that's interesting, very innovative, and then I suppose about 4 years ago, I started to see a real uptick in the number of articles that were appearing online, and then I happened to be reading this one particular article one day, and I kind of had a bit of a moment of realization, and I thought, if this evolves and develops how this article says it's going to, then I'm not going to have a job in 5 years' time. Because as a consultant, your role is to keep your customers ahead of the curve. So you're looking at trends, what's happening in the market, what's happening, in the distance, in the future, that's coming down the line. And then you're advising your clients on how to prepare and how to put the foundations in place to to position themselves for competitive advantage in whatever impact that has. And I just came to the realization that I needed to, the more I read about it, the more confused I got. And I kind of went from being really excited about the potential to feeling really overwhelmed and trying to get my head around it. And I thought, no, I need to put structure around this. So I went off and did those diplomas. And, I remember sitting on week 2 of the first course, and there were all these techies in the class, and they were all having this real kind of technical conversation. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I'm never going to get my head around this. This is going to be beyond me. It's too technical. And started to panic a bit. But as the weeks went on, we started to get more into the business aspects, into the strategy aspects. And then I thought, hang on a minute, I really understand this. And the penny dropped for me that understanding AI and implementing AI, it's first and foremost about strategy. And I think that's a big mistake and a big misconception that companies have, that they think it's all about the technology, and it really isn't. That's about 20% of the picture, but the other 80% is about strategy, people, data, and processes. So so yes, you know, if you're in the position as a consultant, and I think even today, if you're, you know, for someone in my position, if you're a strategy consultant and you're not talking to your clients about AI, you know, to me that's a bit like kind of gross negligence, I think, because it's going to have such a profound impact on, you know, it's not just an internal thing. It's not something that companies decide, oh, we'll get around to that eventually. You know, it's not, it doesn't just affect the internal workings of your company, it's going to affect the industry as a whole and how the industry operates and the entire ecosystem that your company operates in. So so yeah, it's a big deal.
So you founded a company and it's AI for SMEs.
Yes, yeah.
So seeing the naughties, Jonathan, would you agree with me? Health and safety was a big game changer.
Oh, very much so,
in
yeah.
the noughties. Yeah, we'll go with that. And companies have a handle on that. Move on to the last 8 or 9 years. Digital construction very much came along.
Came to the forefront, yeah.
BIM is centre stage, got slightly, as somebody said to me, got slightly overtaken and overshadowed by other big B at the time, which was Brexit. Okay. But AI, I think, seems to have got huge traction. Okay, and that's why you took the time to go ahead and found your company, AI for SMEs. Okay, so what sort of companies are you working with at the moment, Suzanne?
So it's kind of across the board, right, from contractors through to M&E companies to consultants. So yeah, throughout the whole spectrum of construction companies.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are still we're trying to find out exactly what AI is and what the implications of it are. You know, it's very much at an exploratory stage, I would say.
I see, to put it in perspective, are you working with, again, thinking construction companies, are you working with large construction companies who are perhaps well down a path and a strategy in place? Or are you also working with surprisingly large contractors that have maybe no plan in place? Is there a mixture of things going on there?
There is a mixture of, I would say digital maturity, but nobody has this all worked out yet. Nobody, you know, and even large companies are, for the most part, still at quite an early stage.
Yeah, and we'll not ask you to name any companies, but is there bigger companies up there that are literally surprisingly early on their journey?
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Sam, tell us, let's put it in layman's terms. What is that journey? Let's imagine small SME, general construction company. How do they use AI? What is the benefits of AI? What systems is that going to benefit them? How does it help the business?
So I think there are lots of benefits to the company. So if you think about AI in terms of your business, or from a business perspective, it performs 3 functions. It automates processes, it lets you get insights from your data, or it improves engagement with your customers, colleagues and community. So those are really the 3 areas. I think a lot of misconceptions about AI is that it's just ChatGPT or that it's Microsoft Copilot. And there are actually 14,500 AI tools on the market. And a lot of those are job role specific. So really in construction, so if you have a QS, they'll be using certain types of AI tools. Estimators will be using maybe different AI tools.
But give us some examples of that. So you're an estimator, how does AI help you?
Okay, so there are tools like Creo on the market, which do automated takeoff. So there are standalone tools. There are also then native AI integrations into software that you'd already be using, things like Procore, and Procore has AI functionality that you can bolt on as such, or Autodesk also has AI functionality. So the different job roles will be using different AI tools, and I think some of the misconceptions about that, or even taking a really simple example like bid management, there are off-the-shelf bid management tools that you can use. they only do bid management. So they're very specific to that. People are using, I know, ChatGPT to generate responses to for bids at the minute, but those are very general tools. They're like the Swiss Army knife of AI. Yeah. They're general purpose tools, but they're not specific enough to produce a tender response at an adequate level.
But there are tools that can do that.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So let's take that another step forward. So what you're saying is there are AI tools that will generate your tender bid. So where does ethics come into this? Okay, so what you're doing there, so you have tools on the market like AutoGen AI or EasyPQQ, and what they do is, so take AutoGen for example. It is an AI tool that you connect to, say, your SharePoint file where you keep all your past tenders and PQQ responses. Mm-hmm. So although it's already pre-trained on tender bids and tender responses, what you're doing there is mining your own information. Mm-hmm. So it's generating a response to a new tender. So you upload the actual tender document from the client onto that. It mines that, it matches it to information that you have provided to it from your own past tenders. It will then give you a scenario of bid or no bid, based on the tender responses that you've done in the past. You have X% chance of winning this tender. And then as you go through and maybe it generates a first draft, you always need a human in the loop. You always need someone to stand over that to check everything, but it's generating a first draft. But what it will do is highlight section by section, according to the client's criteria. This section is currently sitting at 60%. And in order to get 100% in this, you need to talk about X, Y, and Z. So it's allowing you to refine your bid and perfect it. But how do you deal with ethics? That's what I find difficult, because if you want to use AI to generate responses specific to that, it's quite easy to do so without actually having the knowledge. You can use tools that will generate an ideal answer. Is that right? Where's the moral compass? That's where I keep asking them.
Yeah, you still have to be able to stand over that, though. You can't put information in there that's false. Because ultimately it's not the AI tool that's responsible.
So what do we do about the really good contractor who's not using an AI tool, has got a bid manager who is relying on their own knowledge? Mm-hmm. They write a bid which they're probably the best fit for the project. Mm-hmm. Yet someone who has used an AI tool to give an optimum response is awarded that project who maybe is not the ideal fit. Mm-hmm. That's where I have the issue with it. How, I'm not saying that it's an issue. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying this is the challenge I think the industry has to face. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong, I use AI every day. I use certain tools in my business to make myself more efficient. Yes. But I don't use AI to make myself look better than what I actually am.
Yeah, and I think that's where your judgment and your critical thinking come in, that you can't, and this is part of the reason why when you bring in a technology like AI, there are so many aspects to it, and the ethical question is really important. I think that everybody that you meet in life is on an ethics spectrum somewhere. There's some things that are acceptable to one person that wouldn't be acceptable to another. And this is why it's so important at a company level to actually have an AI ethics policy to show people where the line is. As a company, this is where our ethics line is. You don't cross that line.
But sure, I can go into ChatGPT and create an ethics policy and to say here I created one. That's this. Yes. Where's the ethics behind the ethics of that?
You could do, but ultimately,
but if you can stand over the policy,
that's exactly it. It's the accountability behind all of that.
It is, and ultimately, I was working with the board of a construction company, and I showed them a particular AI tool, and I said, oh, this is great, because if everything goes pear-shaped, we can just blame the AI tool. And I said, no, that's not how it works at all, because you are ultimately responsible. So whether you use an AI tool to write your bid response, or you use an external bid writer, or, ultimately the content of the bid, you've got to be able to deliver that. You've got to be able to stand over the accuracy, which is where you always need a bid manager to be checking that and making sure that it is ethical, that it's responsible, that it's compliant. So
see my point, Suzanne, and I take Jonathan's point there, but my point is, you talk about like Easy PQQ, okay? Any of those software packages, they're effectively doing the same thing as a physical consultant bid manager or in-house bid manager.
Yes.
Because that bid manager is mining the data.
Yes.
Okay, he or she is going on to SharePoint and they're doing the exact same thing. They're just physically mining the data, extracting it, and going to the next bid with it.
Yes.
AI just seriously accelerates it.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes.
So my point is, it's actually the same thing. So if I or any bid manager had to get to the end of their bid and tick a box to say, was AI used to generate this submission? You could take, yeah, if it was used, absolutely. But it's also the exact same thing as, was a consultant bid writer used to form this submission? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually the same thing.
I think the
It
challenge
is.
there, Jared, is if you're writing the bid, if you have a client who asks you to falsify information, your ethics will say no.
Run that one again.
So you have a client asks you to write a bid,
Okay.
and they ask you to write the bid to make sure they're fully compliant, even though they may not, in principle, be compliant. You will say no. Your ethics will say, sorry, I can't do that. I can just take the data that's there.
Yeah. As a prudent professional, you have to do that.
The problem is if you have an unethical company who've got the AI tools, they can use those tools to ensure they write an optimum bid, whether or not they actually have the ability to do it. I think that's where the difference is, and that's where the ethics have to come into that.
But see the bottom line in that, John. See at the end of the day, that bid, someone, an officer of the company, has to sign that bid.
Do you think that's going to stop some people signing?
But whether it's a physical person who drafted the bid or AI generated content, you have to put an officer, typically a director, their name and signature. You would have signed off loads of bids.
Oh,
back when you
absolutely.
were-
But I would know myself, I have quite a good moral compass, but there's lots out there who don't.
yeah, and you're trusting your bid manager working behind you.
Yeah, and I think that's where we have to really look at the whole ethical side of it. Don't get me wrong, I believe AI is a great tool. I think it has to be used effectively, but I think the moral issue is the biggest challenge we have. It is the biggest challenge. The other issue is, do we get to the stage that each and every contractor ends up submitting an absolute optimum bid where everybody's scoring 100%, and therefore
Close to that anyway.
yeah, and therefore the quality side, well, maybe your side, you're all 100%. But do we then get to the stage that the PQQs are relevant? Because everybody scored the
potentially.
same, and therefore
Yeah.
we're back to first across the line in price. Who's got the cheapest?
Potentially, yeah.
And we ended up with that race to the bottom again, because the
Potentially.
quality now becomes, it's a bit like health and safety, it becomes a given. Because it's the exact same examples to health and safety. We had a major issue in the industry. We were killing too many people, one person's too many. And we went through quite a difficult time through the 90s and the early 2000s. We have now a great health and safety throughout the industry, the majority of the industry. There are still small sectors that aren't great, but it's now taken as a given. It's now accepted that we have a very, very high standard. Sometimes I think the standards may be gone too high, where complacency sets in and actually creates a danger. But we're at a very high level.
Yeah, to
So-
be commended, yeah.
So
yeah.
do we get to the stage that the bid quality does the same? We all reach such a peak because of AI.
Well, I think this is such an important point, because AI will raise the bar for everybody.
Yes.
So once you raise the bar, AI does not make you more competitive. And it's actually other elements. How do you build competitive advantage when knowledge is a commodity?
Yeah.
So that's through other avenues. That's through your people, it's through your business model and your revenue streams, and it's through your data. And I would nearly say that there's a fourth one there, which is trust. So this goes back to why it is so important to train your people, and training your staff on AI literacy. It is actually, using AI is a bit like learning a language. It's incremental. And it's a journey, and there are no shortcuts, which is why it's so important to start now, because the market is continuing and the technology is continuing to develop. So people need to build their skills now and start now. So training your people, if I gave 10 people a paintbrush and I said, paint me a picture there, same paintbrush, same paints, The outputs would be very different, and it's all down to the skill of the person using the paintbrush. And it's the same with the AI tools. And I think that there's this misconception also that, younger people, they're familiar with the technology, so they'll be great at using AI. That is not the case. It's actually the people with the domain knowledge, the people with the judgment and the experience and the critical thinking and the been around the block, they've built umpteen projects, they know the score. They are the people who will get the most out of using AI tools. So training your people to make sure that, that's one of your differentiators. Your second differentiator is going to be your business model and your revenue streams. And, when we get to that point, which is not that far off, I would say you're looking at probably maybe 18 to 24 months down the line where AI commoditizes knowledge. How do you then, as a contractor, for example, how do you build competitive advantage? What is your business model? What are your revenue streams? And I think that there's this danger of, yes, you can bring in AI at an operational level to make your processes more efficient, to automate a lot of the admin and a lot of the compliance work, for example. But you've also got to look at the strategic piece, because you could end up having the perfect solution. You can spend millions on bringing in AI tools, but if the market changes around you, you could end up with the perfect solution to the wrong problem. And that's the big issue that I see. And I
think the other issue is, I believe it's the answer to your skills crisis. There's no doubt we have a massive crisis. How do we resolve that? Efficiency is the way we resolve it, and AI is the tool we can use for that efficiency. But we're in an industry where we're no longer traditional contractors. It's all supply chain management. It's all risk management. So it doesn't matter what size a tier one contractor is now, everything is sublet packages out to the supply chain. So how do we ensure the supply chain also come on that journey? Because if they don't come on the journey, well, all the tools we're using may in effect create efficient systems, but if the supply chain's not bought into those systems and can come along the journey, it's not going to be effective. So how do we make sure everybody embraces it?
Oh, there's so many things to pick apart here.
Totally, yeah.
Well, see to preempt that, Suzanne, so we've kind of concluded there that a managing director of any construction firm needs to have AI on their agenda in a boardroom, okay?
Yes.
That's for
I think it needs to be number one on the agenda.
I actually read a statistic the other day, correct me if I'm wrong, 80% of staff are using AI tools.
Yes.
20% of companies are actually thinking about AI as a strategy. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, that sounds correct.
So there's a massive gap there between what the people actually want and what the companies are actually
it's been used
providing
ad hoc individually.
But then the problem then is we've a large percentage of people using it who maybe don't understand it, having the full ability to utilise it, and then the ethics then come into it, because the company hasn't got a strategy. There's no direction.
Yes, exactly. And I think there's a lot of naivety around people putting information into tools like ChatGPT or Google Gemini or some of the others. And but there's no guidelines in the company to say, actually, unless you're working on an enterprise version of that AI tool, all that information is going out publicly into the engine and it's training the engine. So it's publicly available. So if you're putting any kind of customer information into that, financial information, anything that's commercially sensitive, that constitutes a huge GDPR infringement. So that's what I mean. When you brought up very rightly about the ethics, you've got to understand AI from so many different angles, and there's so many different facets to it. One of the other elements is, looking at the whole digital transformation piece in construction. And digital transformation really kicked off, I suppose, it's at least 15 years ago. There are companies that still haven't embraced digital transformation in the construction sector. Now, digital transformation, that's really the building blocks to allow you to build AI on. AI is another layer, but having high quality data that's clean, well labelled, so anybody that's gone down the digital transformation route is at a massive advantage. if you're the type of company where there's people still running about on site with pen and paper, I honestly don't know how you're going to catch up, because I think that for the minute it's like the calm before the storm. I think in the next 2 years we're going to see huge economic volatility, and the companies who are at a distinct advantage are the ones who have embraced digital transformation.
So an SME company still using pen and paper out there, you would seriously question the future of that company. That's a big shout.
Yes, I would. I would, because I think that the whole, either they have to put full focus on and spend a significant amount of money digitising all their paper records and knowledge, or I think their time's limited.
I think the other side of this, Gerard, is if we look at the UK, the mainland, England, Wales, with the more England, Wales, because what I'm going to come on to is the Building Safety Act, which very much says the golden thread has to exist throughout your organisations, and that interaction of data sources has to be there, and the whole, the handover files, the whole process, how everything has arrived, the specification materials, it's absolutely crucial. So the whole digital transformation has been driven by that.
Yes.
And I think a lot of companies in Northern Ireland aren't ready for that. They do not realise the Building Safety Act in some form is coming to Northern Ireland. And if you haven't gone digital,
when's that coming?
You're in trouble. Well, it's with the Department of Communities at the moment. It's under consultation, but
I think
we can expect it probably in 2027
in Northern Ireland.
In Northern Ireland, in some format. Now, will they water it down? Will they enhance it? Whatever they do, the core principles are going to be there.
And what are you hearing? It'll effectively be the template that's in England, I take it?
I would say it'll be effectively the template in England, yes. Now, a lot of people have a misconception believing it's all about high-risk buildings, HRBs. It's not. It is a generational change to the construction industry. And I believe what you're saying is quite right. If you're not digital, you're in an awful lot of trouble, and nobody's prepared for it. And this is going to affect the SMEs. It's going to affect the house builders. If you're doing construction works, you're going to have a whole new set of standards that you're going to have to adhere to. And that's not just about your standards, it's about your behavioural standards. It's how you track the behaviours of people, how you instill ethos and culture into your organisation, how you get people to actually think more about the ethics, the bricklayer, to make sure he does the thing right when nobody's looking, not just your staff. And without a digital transformation, that's going to be nigh on impossible.
Yeah, I think that, there are a lot of different threads in construction at the minute, like the Building Safety Act. You've got, increasing compliance for ESG as well. You've got the carbon costs, and it's really like the perfect storm. You've got digital transformation, you've got AI coming into the mix there. And I'll put a scenario to you off the back of what you're talking about there, along the lines of the golden thread. How I see potentially, you're always trying to think ahead of helping your clients to prepare for what's coming down the line. And I'm thinking ahead here of how could this pan out if AI comes in, full force into the construction sector. Take an example of where you have a client who has repeat projects of the same type. They're sitting at the top. Now, the value in a construction project is now in the data. And if you're the client, you're going to want to own that data right from the beginning of the project right to the end, because it makes sense that if you have a template type project, let's say, that you want to refine that model as much as possible. So you've got the client, and let's say that they bring in AI in a big way, and that they want to own the information, and that they own the coordination platform or orchestration platform. You've got the contractor below that. That client will want the contractor to feed into the same platform as them. The contractor will then be asking their subcontractors to also feed into that same platform, so that there is that commonality of, let's say, information ecosystem. As AI comes in and it starts to automate some of those processes, and maybe starts to automate the coordination layer, which is actually the role of the construction contractor at the minute, I can foresee a scenario where the contractor's role is greatly diminished. And it could even get to a point where you no longer need the construction contractor at all, because everything is being coordinated by the client, automatically orchestrated by AI, and all you need is for the people who are actually building the project, i.e. the subcontractors, to deal with the client directly through the same data ecosystem.
You're also saying less pre-construction involvement from contractors potentially in the future.
So there's been a really interesting scenario recently where the company ACOM has bought over an AI technology company.
That to me is a step change in the industry.
It's a huge change when you think about the outworkings of that and the ramifications. And I've spent an awful lot of time since that was announced, thinking about what the implications of it are.
That acquisition was $390 million for
Yes.
an AI company.
Yeah.
So if ACOM are adopting those tools, the whole industry is going to change.
Yes, and it's more than that. It's not that they're even adopting the AI technology, it's that they're embedding it as a strand of their competitive advantage. So it changes the entire procurement
Model
process. So whereas before you had design, optimize, value engineer the living daylights out of it, now all of that information is going to come in up front.
Early,
and which means then that the client is going to expect a much higher grade of certainty at tender stage, so unless you have a contractor that's down the line of digital transformation and actually coming to the party with all that information to the client, then there's a lot less wriggle room for the construction contractor to build in around pricing. And they need to be looking at what are our revenue streams here, what are we bringing to the table that's different from anyone else. So it has a whole lot of ramifications, and it will. And that's what I mean about, if you just focus on the AI tools, you can have the perfect solution to the wrong problem, because if you can't win the tender in the first place,
there's your problem.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So you could have all these perfect AI systems in place, but they're useless to you.
And tell me, what do you think the risks are of this AI bubble bursting? The American economy is, their growth in the last quarter, 60% of their growth came through the big seven, which is ridiculous if we look at that. So, we look at NVIDIA, what is their value that's 2,000 times earnings, like that is just ridiculous. So if that bubble bursts, what's going to happen there?
I think that
is it going to be the dot-com bubble?
Yeah, a lot of that discussion is around the infrastructure, and let's face it, there's a lot of nonsense talked about AI in the market as well,
Probably 90% of it is nonsense, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's the difficulty for companies, that you've got kind of three sources of information, which, and I say all three sources are very unhelpful. You've got the tech speak that nobody understands unless you're a techie, information coming from the AI vendors, which is all about their latest shiny new toy, so you're kind of overwhelmed as to which is the right AI tool to use. And then you have all the hype, and there's so much hype in the industry, and all this talk about companies laying off thousands of workers, and I mean that's been completely debunked, that it's not because of AI, and people's roles aren't being automated. Everybody's role is going to evolve. It's in the same way that I had my epiphany and realised that my job role as a consultant needed to evolve. Everybody's job role is going to evolve, and we're all going to be using AI, but our skill sets don't stay static. And you don't bring AI in with a view to doing what you've always done, except faster or more efficiently. It's thinking wider than that. What does AI make possible that we weren't able to do before?
There's another side to AI that people don't realise. It's the power usage. It's the resource that we're actually using. They're building a new data. I've done a bit of work in the data centre environment as well. There is a data centre being built in California at the moment that is so big that the power requirement is equivalent to one nuclear power station. Now, that's just one data center. And if we continue to build them at the pace that we're talking about, the environmental impact of that, because we're not on clean energy as yet, we're on our pathway to net zero 2050. Yet what we're actually doing is we're increasing our power, and AI is going to end up using more power than what we as a population are actually using in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, and I mean, I think
massive.
it is. It's certainly a factor. Although interestingly, I did at one stage do a comparison between the meat industry and the energy that it uses and natural resources it uses, and AI, and the meat industry uses 2,000 times more energy and resources than AI
At the moment.
At the minute. But I think as time goes on, that the underlying technology is going to evolve as well, and hopefully we'll get to a stage where the technology itself will become lots more energy efficient. Everything's fluid, I think, in the market at the minute, and certainly we couldn't go on the way we are building data centres all over the place.
Well, listen, I think we need to relax it a little bit, Jared. We'll move on to the quick fire questions, but we've got more of an insight into you, Suzanne.
So you can take a quick breather, Suzanne. You've done great. This is the feedback so far. So we're just going to ask you some quick fire questions. There's 10 of them. Okay, so you like that? Okay. So put a slight different twist. I'm going to ask the question, and I want Jonathan to answer it on your behalf. Okay,
which I think.
And then you can tell us.
I get worried now.
If he's right. Okay.
So we got a prize for this, or?
You might. And Vicky on AV's got a job. She has to record how many Jonathan gets right out of 10. Okay?
It's alright, she's using AI. She's her AI app open. ChatGPT's going mad there. Fine.
Okay, so first one. Your preference, a hotel or Airbnb?
I would say you've travelled the world, you're sick of hotels, Airbnb.
Is he right? Is he right?
Oh, I don't know. I would say hotel. I think,
okay.
I'm a great believer, unless it's nicer than your own house, just stay at home.
I'm surprised I would have went Airbnb. Okay. Next one, pen or keyboard?
Oh, it's a keyboard.
Definitely.
Has to be. Okay, 1-0. Very good. 3, spicy or mild? If you're out for a meal.
Oh, thank God you qualified that.
I got a nudge there to say you better clarify that.
Spicy.
I think
Correct.
so. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, you don't sit on the fence. 4, a restaurant or a home-cooked meal? What's your preference?
Well, on the basis of the hotels, it's definitely the restaurant.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Adventure or relaxation? What do you think, Jonathan?
Ooh. I'm going to go relaxation.
I would have thought adventure.
I would say between the two, probably. I would say both, yeah.
Okay.
Both, okay.
Okay. 6, phone call or text message? What do you prefer?
Phone call.
Phone call?
Definitely. I am of that era where I just prefer to speak to people.
Very good. 7, here's one. Smart shoe in a business environment. Smart shoes or casual shoes? What do you think? You can't look under the table?
Can't look under the table. I'm going to go casual.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Post-COVID, the high heels have been ditched totally.
I think everybody's the same. 8, your preference, beach or mountains?
Beach.
Definitely.
Yeah, very
Beyond
good.
a doubt.
You're going well with this. You're going well. Okay. 9, is she an early bird or a night owl? What do you
Both.
reckon?
Yes. Yes.
Do you not work later in evenings?
So in the mornings, I would be up generally 5 o'clock. And yeah, I would get like a second wind later.
Jared probably doesn't realise there's 2 5 o'clocks every day, did you?
Last one, 10. Does she prefer a comedy or a drama?
A good comedy drama.
Yes.
Hedging his bets.
Yes.
Hedging my bets over here, yeah. I would say probably comedy.
Yes.
If you're pushed, yeah.
Comedy, very good. It's a Friday. Last question for you. What's your plans for the weekend? It's a Friday. It's 11:15. What's Suzanne Hill get up to on a Friday evening?
So Friday, so this evening I'm meeting a friend for drinks after
Very
work.
good. Where are you off to?
And
Anywhere nice?
another business person, so we'll probably have a good natter about business
Very
and
good.
the perils of being an entrepreneur.
Oh, will you have a glass of wine in somewhere in Hollywood, County Down?
Yes, most definitely. Yeah.
And he's going for a meal?
Yes, we are. Yeah, yeah. So on a few glasses of wine.
Oh, a
Very
few
good.
glasses.
Yeah,
Even better.
just a few.
Yeah. And what's Saturday look like? What are you up to on Saturday?
Probably a bit of Christmas shopping tomorrow, I think.
Very good. Head into Belfast?
Yes, yeah.
Very good. And relax on a Sunday, typically?
Yes, yeah. Sunday's definitely for chilling out and catching up with friends. Probably go for breakfast somewhere on Sunday morning. It's a usual routine on a Sunday,
Very good.
and catch up with friends.
Very good. And last question I'm going to ask you. If you could invite three people to a dinner party, famous people or close friends, who would you invite? Now, be careful if your close friends are listening to this. Be mindful of how you answer.
Oh, I know. So famous people and close friends. Gosh.
Three of them, who would you have? Could be good company or just someone you'd love to listen to.
Gosh, that's a difficult one. Okay, people are going to hate me. This is going to be a real Marmite answer.
Right.
Margaret Thatcher
Right.
would
Why?
be
Go
number
ahead.
one on my list because I think she was a fantastic leader. Did she get everything right? No, but I think that she was a really strong, ethical leader. I think she's probably the last ethical prime minister that we've had.
Very good.
Who else? Daniel Priestley.
Right.
The entrepreneur, Australian entrepreneur. I love his take on business. I also think he's very ethical.
Right.
And I just like his approach to business. Who else? Gosh, that's a difficult one. Well, you put me on the spot here. I don't know. Probably one of my friends, just for purely for the comedy
Yeah.
value.
Bit of balance.
Yes,
And
yeah.
give them a shout out. Who would it be?
Oh, Jared. Oh, no. I'd
No,
ref-
that's too. I'm not going to answer that. That's
Right,
too
fair
difficult a choice.
Very good. Look, I've enjoyed that, Jonathan. I'm
Oh,
sure
very
you
much
have
so. No,
too.
it's been a very insightful, Zana. It's a massive subject.
It is.
Definitely
It
is. And
really
there is no right answers. I think
No,
I would describe it as we're at the start of the next industrial revolution, aren't we?
We
really
are.
are. In fact, we're probably quite far down that path.
most
So
definitely.
the
Yeah.
world is going to change massively in the next couple of
Yeah.
years. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about that.
That ethics was interesting. I didn't really plan to go down that, but you're right. You're right to flag that. There's an angle there that I hadn't dwelled on.
I think it's a question that gets asked a lot, Jared. You know, some of the panels that I sit on, it's a big question.
Yeah.
How do we deal with the ethics?
Yes.
In an industry where we're trying to, look at the professionalism and ethics as two of the key things. I think moving forward, the industry really has to demonstrate.
Yeah.
So it's using it in the right manner, and I think we will get there. We will get there. Is it going to be regulated? Is there going to be, an AI police force that keep an eye on ensure we meet those high standards? Who knows?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that transparency is the key thing there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And really, as I said, those four strands to competitive advantage. I see trust as being really centre to that as well.
Yeah,
you know.
but what's actually changed? It's always been that way in business, hasn't it? Trust really is one of the key pillars of business. So
It is, and relationships.
Yeah.
Suzanne, I hope you enjoyed the hour you
It
spent
was
with us
great.
there.
Thank you so much for having me along.
Thank you for
Great.
coming. Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, and thanks for coming, and once again, thanks for being our guest, Suzanne.
Okay,
Maybe
thank
just
you.
before we finish, ask you one question.
Sure.
We always like to think about the youth in the industry and people come through and how we encourage people into the industry. What would your words of wisdom be for young people considering a career, particularly in the built environment?
I think there's no better time to be involved in the construction industry. I think that we're at the start of a renaissance of the trades as well. And, you're looking at electricians with all these data centres being built. They're going to be very much in demand. I think that companies are also under leveraging the power of AI to position themselves as AI-enabled workplaces. And that's a great way of attracting in a whole other generation of people. So maybe a few different things there.
Good answer.
Very good. We'll talk to you again, Suzanne. Again.
Indeed.
Thanks very much,
Thanks
guys,
for
for
coming.
having me.
Thanks, Suzanne.
This is Specify Talks, so check out Specify Hub. You can also download the recording on Spotify and YouTube. Don't forget to check out the socials and also stay up to date for the next recording, which will be issued in January.